These 8 advanced English words will lift your fluency and your IELTS, TOEFL, or Cambridge score. And you won't just memorize them. You'll meet each one inside the story, feel what it means, then prove you caught it. That's how your brain keeps them for good. For 40 years, the colony of Meridian believed that Earth had forgotten them. On the night Sela finally repaired the broken array, she learned a truth that turned 40 years of grief inside out. Meridian was the most isolated outpost humankind had ever built. A handful of domes on a cold red world, half a galaxy from home. In its 3rd year, the great deep space array had failed, and Earth's voice had gone silent. For 4 decades, the colony had heard nothing at all. Isolated, dwindling, and certain they had been forsaken, the colonists came to believe a single bitter story, that Earth had forgotten them, or fallen, and left them quite alone in the dark. And yet they survived. They were resilient people, born to the families of the first settlers, and they grew their meager crops and mended their failing domes and kept one another alive. But beneath the resilient calm, an old ache never left them. They yearned for a blue world none of the young had ever seen, and the elders yearned to know, before they died, whether Earth still turned at all. Sela had been born on Meridian, and had never once seen a sky that was not red. She was an engineer, and she had spent 5 years on a task the elders called a waste of her life, trying to restore the dead comms array, circuit by ruined circuit. "Earth is gone, child," they told her gently. "Let it rest." But Sela could not let it rest. Something in her needed to restore that broken voice, even if only to prove that the silence was truly real. Then, on a long cold night deep in the array, she found it. The single corroded junction where, 40 years before, the whole link had died. With shaking hands, she cleaned it and joined it and held her breath. For a moment, nothing at all. Then the old machine woke with a low hum, and across its ancient screen ran the faintest glimmer of light. It was the first glimmer Meridian had seen in 4 long decades. At first there was only static, a hiss of empty space. Sela almost wept. But then beneath the hiss came a voice, faint and warm and human. It was not asking whether anyone was still alive out here in the dark. It was in the middle of speaking, as if it had been speaking for a very long time. And as Sela listened, she understood that Earth had never once stopped trying to transmit. It had been transmitting to Silent Meridian every single day for 40 years. The message she had caught was numbered. It was the 14,600th in an unbroken daily chain. 40 years of them, one for every day the colony had sat in its silence, each carrying the same steady promise. "Meridian, this is Earth," the voice said. "We have not forgotten you. We will never forget you. Hold on, we are coming." Sela sat alone in the cold control room and shook. They had not been forsaken. They had never, for one single day, been forsaken, while lifetime after lifetime of Meridian grew up believing themselves humanity's abandoned orphans. Earth had been calling out to them across the void every dawn, loving them, remembering them, refusing to let them go. And a corroded junction the width of a fingernail had stolen every word. And there was more. Buried in the newest messages was news the colony had long ago stopped daring to dream of. A relief ship, supplies, doctors, fresh hands, and seed had been launched from Earth 11 years before, on the slow road across the stars. It was no longer a distant hope. It was, the voice said, only a few short weeks from Meridian's orbit. Help was not coming one day. Help was almost here. Sela did not keep it to herself for even an hour. She woke the whole colony, and she played them the voice of Earth, the warm, steady voice that had been calling their names since before most of them were born. The old men and women who had grown up certain they were forgotten stood in the cold dome and wept like children, listening to 40 years of a love they had never once known was there. In the weeks that followed, as a bright new star grew slowly larger in Meridian's red sky, the colony was not the same. The resilient people who had survived being forgotten now had something they had lacked for 40 years, not just the glimmer of hope, but its certainty. They had learned the one thing that no distance in all the universe can ever truly break. Their silence had never been a broken bond. It had only ever been a broken wire. And as the relief ship slipped at last into orbit above the red world, and the first new voices in 40 years came drifting down to a colony that had yearned so very long to hear them, Selah understood what she had truly managed to restore that cold night in the array. Not a machine, a truth, that they had been held in someone's heart, faithfully across all that dark, every single day on the whole time. Now, and did you catch all 8? Let's find out. An adjective meaning cut off, alone, and far from everyone else. Think of a single lighthouse on a rock miles out in an empty sea. The colony of Meridian was the most this place humans had ever built. Half a galaxy from home. The what kind of colony heard nothing for 40 years?
The word is isolated.
The farm was so isolated that the nearest town lay 50 miles away. A verb meaning to repair something or bring it back to how it was. It's what you do when you lovingly bring an old, ruined car back to life. Selah spent 5 years trying to do this to the dead comms array. She was determined to do what? Repair the broken machine and its lost voice?
The word is restore.
Experts worked for years to restore the fire-damaged old church. A noun for a faint, trembling trace of light, or of hope. It's the tiny gleam of a far-off candle in a vast, dark room. On the ancient screen, Selah saw the first one of these in 40 years. A single what of hope flickered on the long-dead screen.
The word is glimmer.
There was still a faint glimmer of light low on the far horizon. A noun for a large, ordered set of things arranged to work together. Think of a whole field of solar panels all angled to catch the sun. Meridian's giant comms, one of these, had failed in the colony's 3rd year. Selah worked to mend the dead deep space. What that once linked them to Earth? The word is array. The lab held a dazzling array of screens, dishes, and blinking lights. A verb meaning to long deeply and achingly for something. It's the deep pull you feel toward a home you've been away from too long. The colonists did this for a blue world the young had never seen. The old settlers would do what? Long, achingly, to know if Earth still turned?
The word is yearn.
After years abroad, she began to yearn for the taste of home. An adjective meaning tough, hardy, and quick to recover from hardship. Think of a tree that bends flat in the gale but springs back up after. The colonists were this, surviving 40 years of being forgotten. The what kind of settlers kept one another alive through 4 cold decades?
The word is resilient.
Children are often surprisingly resilient after a very difficult year. A verb meaning to send a signal or message out across a distance. It's what a radio tower does, beaming its program out for miles. Earth never once stopped trying to do this to the silent colony. For 40 years, Earth had continued to do what? Beam out a daily message into the dark?
The word is transmit.
The satellite can transmit a clear signal to the whole continent. An adjective meaning abandoned, deserted, and left utterly alone. Think of a ghost town left empty, with no one ever coming back. 3 generations of the colony grew up certain that they were this. They believed they were what? Abandoned and forgotten. Orphans in the cold dark?
The word is forsaken.
The forsaken old mining village stood empty and silent for decades. Quick recap. How many do you still remember?
Isolated. Restore. Glimmer.
Array.
Yearn. Resilient. Transmit. Forsaken.
A new English story every day. Subscribe and learn advanced words the way your brain actually keeps them, inside a story you won't forget.